Can Dumbledore solo Jujutsu Kaisen? Dumbledore is most definitely the strongest wizard in Harry Potter, but when placed in a world with instant win domain expansions, high-level reverse curse techniques, and stupidly broken abilities like Infinity, how far does he really get? Well, you may not realize this, but when it comes to magical power systems, the world of Harry Potter has some insanely powerful hacks, which totally embarrass some of anime's strongest abilities, including Jujutsu Kaisen. So make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick around to see my thoughts on Dumbledore versus Gojo and Sukuna. Anyway, let's get right into it. Unlike in Jujutsu Kaisen, where each character normally has one technique, wizards from Harry Potter can learn hundreds if not thousands of spells. Some of these forms of magic are so broken that if a Jujutsu sorcerer were to face one, it would feel like fighting an opponent with unlimited conditionless techniques. I mean, just think about the lengths that Yuki and Chozo went to simply to smoke out one single extra technique Kenjaku was hiding, and now imagine that he was hiding hundreds. Being able to fight against other wizards with the same arsenal also means that Dumbledore is a tactical genius who should have absolutely no problem adjusting to a Jujutsu sorcerer with a way less versatile kit than pretty much anybody he would normally fight. As the power ceiling in his world, Dumbledore should be able to use any type of magic we've seen used by those characters weaker than him. He truly is a master of all forms of magic, and has proven this in duels against Voldemort and Grindelwald, the other two strongest wizards in Harry Potter. With nothing more than the wave of a wand, he can utilize a massive range of spells which far exceed Jujutsu curse techniques. For example, Dumbledore is a master of transfiguration, which affects both inanimate objects and living beings. Although non-fatal, it won't be rectified by a Jujutsu sorcerer's reverse curse technique. And unlike Mahito's idol transfiguration, Dumbledore won't even need to get close to use it. The basic parts of Dumbledore's magical arsenal also include apparition, which is basically just short and long-range teleportation without any cooldown, and the only condition being having a wand. I mean, even Gojo's teleportation is not that level of busted. And then there is magic like legilimency, which would allow Dumbledore to infiltrate an opponent's mind and learn all he needs to know about how Jujutsu works and what threats to look out for. Simple tongue-tying magic could also be used to perfectly counter a Jujutsu sorcerer's chance, meaning boosted output, domain expansions, and curse speech will all become much harder to use. Hell, there is even a spell called Ozzy which literally removes the opponent's mouth from their face. I mean, poor Inamaki is gonna end up getting that Black Bolt treatment from Multiverse of Madness. Now, I will discuss the massive gap in their speed in just a moment, but there are some defense against the dark art spells, like the Impediment Jinx, which effectively puts the opponent in a temporary slow motion state. This would come in very handy for techniques like projection sorcery, which boost a sorcerer's speed. Disorientation magic, like the Confundus Charm, memory altering magic, and paralysis inducing magic, like Petrificus Totalis, are all types of magic that Dumbledore is exceedingly skilled at. Even something as simple as Expelliarmus would be useful for ridding Jujutsu sorcerers of their swords and cursed tools. Spells like Finite and variants of Finite can even act as a miniature Jacob's Ladder, which nullify all magic for a given area or target. But perhaps the craziest feat we have ever seen from Albus Dumbledore is when he faced off with Credence in Fantastic Beasts, and he created an entire illusionary world not too dissimilar from Aizen's Hypnosis Shikai. Additionally, there are all the variants of shield spells and barrier spells that Dumbledore can use to not only block incoming attacks, but also to potentially counter a domain expansion. And finally, there is the big one, the Killing Curse, better known as Avada Kedavra, that will instantly kill absolutely anything that it touches. Under normal circumstances, Dumbledore would never use this, but fighting against a whole other universe with a whole different power system isn't exactly what I would call normal circumstances. So I will decide whether he uses this on a case-by-case basis. Before moving on to examining Jujutsu Kaisen's advantages though, I would like to clarify a few things that you're probably confused about. If you're a massive Harry Potter nerd like me, then you will know that magic can sometimes work differently in the books to the movies. For the sake of well, awesomeness, I will be drawing on all sources of Harry Potter, which includes the books, the original movies, and the Fantastic Beasts movies. The other thing that I want to clear up is that we're going to have to assume magic is a cursed energy equivalent, or else Dumbledore will be immune to domains and everything will just get way too messy. Basically, verse equalization is definitely needed for these kind of videos. The final thing that needs addressing is my worst nightmare, scaling. Specifically speed, since the durability of Dumbledore's body is largely irrelevant, given his ability ability to easily maintain distance and block attacks. In terms of speed, high-end Jujutsu Kaisen characters are probably anywhere between Mark 3 and Mark 5, maybe Mark 10 if you really want to highball them. Some people argue their lightning speed due to that very ambiguous page of Hakari supposedly dodging lightning, but I think that's bullshit. And please don't even get me started on the people who think they're all light speed, like that's ridiculous. Either way, they basically are just much faster than Dumbledore. However, because this video is about comparing their sorcery abilities against each other, I will just upscale Dumbledore to be relative or just below whoever he is fighting. And if you don't like that, be sure to go cry about it in the comments and then leave. Anyway, I think it's about time that we stop glazing good old Dumbles for just a moment and then give Jujutsu Kaisen some love. I think we'll address the elephant in the room first, domain expansions. You could argue that by using a complex series of shields, Dumbledore could maybe create a makeshift simple domain, but I think that's very unlikely. He would be much better off trying to apparate away from it before it's fully expanded. Although if Dumbledore gets stuck inside a lethal domain expansion, he will lose, just straight up fried. So it's imperative that he ends the fight before reaching that point or takes measures to stop it. Jujutsu sorcerers rarely start a fight with domains though, due to the risk of curse technique burnout. So Dumbledore definitely has a good shot at most opponents. However, that's not to say it's impossible. Domains will definitely act as a crucial ace up any special grade sleeve. And then there is reverse curse technique and cursed energy reinforcement, which will render most of Dumbledore's explosive attacks completely useless. Harry Potter characters can use spells that cause building and sometimes small city block level explosions, although a special grade sorcerer's durability and reverse curse technique will make these attacks completely pointless. Stunning spells like Stupefy are also stopped by durability, as seen when Hagrid eats like 12 of them in the Order of the Phoenix book. This basically limits Dumbledore to magic which either disorients, immobilizes, or instantly kills his opponent. Which, now that I say it out loud, might not actually be such a good thing for the Jujutsu sorcerers, because after all, they have no real way to defend from those types of spells. And then of course, there are exceptional cases like Toji's inverted Spear of Heaven, which should be able to block most of Dumbledore's magic. Gojo and Sukuna are obviously in a league of their own and definitely worth discussing, but I think we will save that section for later on. For now, we're gonna take all of this information and actually see if Dumbledore makes it as far as Gojo and Sukuna in the first place. Please bear in mind though, when it comes to discussing Dumbledore's abilities, we have barely scratched the surface. Right then, let's start simple by seeing if Dumbledore can even make it to special grade level by putting him up against sorcerers between grades 4 and 1. And let's be real, with the exception of Megami, absolutely everybody below grade 1 gets bodied. Megami is cooked too, don't get me wrong, but let's just assume that he summons Big Mummy Maharaga for shits and giggles. With how diverse Dumbledore's kit is, it makes adaptation pretty much pointless. Avada Kedavra is obviously a no-brainer, but even if you want to say Dumbledore won't use it, there are many other ways to just completely delete Maharaga from existence. For example... Now, pretty much any sorcerers reliant on close quarters combat, like Nanami and Kusakabe, are immediately out of the conversation. Actually, to be honest, everybody who is grade 1 and below will so easily go down to a single transfiguration, disorientation, or paralyzing spell. If not, then a combination of all of them. Now pair this with his defensive magic and apparition, and honestly, I just don't see any of them touching him, considering that none of these sorcerers have domain expansions. I mean, Megami does, but he's a bum who could never complete it, so fuck him. This is low-key boring though, so let's talk about everyone's favorites, the disaster curses. Now, I've got to be honest, this is also very one-sided, but their interactions are at least a lot more interesting to talk about. And that is because Dumbledore is their worst possible matchup due to being the master of elemental magic. He's not only going to be turning their own elemental curse techniques against them, but he will be able to attack with the appropriate counter elements in addition to every other type of magic that we've discussed. He can use water against Jogo, fire against Hanami, and ice against Dagon, which means they're all fried unless one of them starts the fight with a domain expansion for whatever dumb reason. Dumbledore would have likely learned about Jujutsu through interrogating previous opponents using legilimency, so he will likely be aware of potential threats like domain expansions. You may think Mahito is an exception to Dumbledore's rampage so far due to his broken abilities, but that is simply not the case. Considering the shape of Mahito's soul is altered by a technique, a simple revealing spell like Revelio would be more than enough for Dumbledore to actually perceive the shape of Mahito's soul. What's really interesting though is that I suspect a Patronus charm would act in a similar way to positive reverse cursed energy output. I mean, think about it. Dementors and cursed spirits both feed off negative energy and have a massive weakness for positive energy. And if a Patronus is a manifestation of positive energy in Harry Potter, which counters Dementors, then I imagine it would do the same to cursed spirits. So yeah, assuming he doesn't get immediately caught up in a domain expansion, Dumbledore's magical abilities prevail yet again. And I've got to be honest with you guys, the same logic kind of just applies to most of the special grade sorcerers. So for simplicity and entertainment purposes, I'm just gonna throw him against the 4 heavy hitters next. I mean, considering how much stronger Dumbledore's sorcery has been so far, do you guys really want me to spend hours going through sorcerers like Arame, who ultimately get slammed? No. So let's stick to the main ones. But that doesn't change the fact that even the heavy hitters do ultimately get slammed. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a pattern here. Maki, Yuji, and Hikari all get packed up because, surprise, surprise, they are all close quarters combatants who will not be able to get close. And, you know, when you're a close quarters combatant who can't get close, there's definitely gonna be a bit of a problem. And even if they do manage to do it, Dumbledore's defensive magic is just far too advanced. Even while being immortal in Jackpot, Hikari will simply drop dead if hit by the killing curse, and the same applies to all the others. If my previous Patronus argument holds up, then Rika shouldn't be a problem either. I mean, judging by how strong his brother's Patronus was, I imagine Dumbledore's is absolutely goated. I think it's clear to see at this point that in terms of magical prowess and sorcery, Dumbledore makes curse techniques look like child's play. But will that hold up against the strongest? Can Dumbledore actually continue to dominate if the King of Curses and the Honored One finally show up to put a stop to it? Well, that's what we're gonna find out now, so lock in. After seeing him delete 99% of the verse, it may be hard to imagine Dumbledore losing at this point. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys, he would be extremely lucky to walk away from either of these fights alive, let alone unharmed. His fight with Sukuna will be entirely decided by who strikes first and in what way. A surprise killing curse, paralyzing spell, or something of that caliber will lead to Sukuna's defeat. But if Sukuna fires off undetectable dismantles first, then Dumbledore will become Dumble/Door. Simple as that. Interrogating his previous opponents may give Dumbledore a slight advantage, allowing him to plan ahead and perhaps trap Sukuna in a similar illusion to what he used on the immensely powerful Credence. That is just one of many possibilities though, and it ultimately does come down to whose strike lands first, meaning that it is pretty much a 50-50 between them. As for Satoru Gojo though, a 50-50 would be pushing it. Like, really pushing it. Gojo is still way faster, can teleport, and has access to Unlimited Void, Infinity, Blue, Red, and Hollow Purple. Attacks like Purple will simply be way too fast for Dumbledore to react to or block, and that's if he even does have the strength to block a Purple, which I think is so ridiculously unlikely. Dumbledore's spells will also just fail to ever reach Gojo because of Infinity, with his only chance of bypassing this maybe being a variant of Finite, which could disable Infinity for a while. But in that scenario, all Gojo needs to do is launch an Unlimited Void domain, and unless Dumbledore can react in under 0.2 seconds, he is cooked. In conclusion, the strongest wizard in Harry Potter has a decent 50-50 chance against Sukuna, but a less than 1% chance against the Honored One. In reality though, Gojo and Dumbledore are immensely similar characters and would likely be very good friends, although that's for a whole separate video. Just for funsies, I decided to add Dumbledore versus Tarkaba as a bonus round. Dumbledore gets cooked, end of story, bonus round over. Overall, Dumbledore's magical abilities absolutely decimate 99% of Jujutsu Kaisen, with some of the most broken and underrated hacks in any magical power system ever. I mean, durability negating instant death spell? Come on, be serious here. But yeah, realistically, he gets blitzed by like Kusakabe, so whatever, power scaling.